Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram, Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Sunday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. On today's show, we're going to go back to James Gunn's DC Universe's story so far. We're going to look at what he's announced thus far, and I'm going to tell you my views and opinions on those titles and announcements. So let's begin. Let's begin with Superman Legacy. The last thing I want to see from Wonder Woman, Batman and Superman is another Dick Donner Superman movie or another Zack Snyder Superman movie. The same with Batman. I don't want to see another Matt Reeves or Bruce Timm or, Tim Burton, or Christopher Nolan take, right? I want James Gunn to have something new to say about these iconic DC characters. So in terms of Superman Legacy, it is looking like James Gunn has something new to say on Superman. I love the idea of, doing something on Superman's actual legacy about truth, justice, and the American way. The fact that this is a good guy in a very cynical world today, and to, justify Superman's existence. I'm very excited that Superman Legacy will see a living, breathing, populated DC universe with Guy Gardner and other, Hawk Girl and other iconic DC characters, being built out around Superman, Lois Lane, and Jimmy Olsen. And by the way, I'm always happy to see Jimmy Olsen in animated DC or live action DC, especially in a Superman movie. I do believe, unlike a lot of other people out there, that Jimmy is very important. He's our way into the story. I think the fact that a school leaver goes to work at the most famous newspaper in the world and becomes Superman's best pal is a beautiful thing. I love the casting for Superman Legacy thus far. I think David Corenswet is a great pick. Rachel Brosnahan is a great pick. She's one of the great actors of this generation, by the way. He's cast a brilliant Lex Luthor. I'm excited to see what happens with Lex in Superman Legacy. Guy Gardner, I think Nathan Fillion will be a great Guy Gardner as well. So far with Superman Legacy, so good. Now, I've spoken about James Gunn and the red flags of DC Universe, but that's more about my paranoia. There's no evidence to justify my paranoia about his plans. And in terms of Superman Legacy, I do like what he's done thus far, and we'll have to wait and see for more announcements. But so far, so good. Now, let's talk about Brave and the Bold. It's not called Batman Brave and the Bold. It's called Brave and the Bold. Now, this is going to be very, very interesting because Brave and the Bold, we've had a string of graphic novels called Brave and the Bold. We had one of the best animated series from Bruce Timm in terms of Batman and DC called Batman, the Brave and the Bold. I like this idea of a more fantastical take at Batman, and we've spoken about this many times as well, that we've got those realistic, grounded takes. We've got one going on over at DC Elseworlds right now with Matt Reeves' The Batman Universe. We don't need another realistic, grounded take at Batman. So I'm happy we're going fantastical, a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter. It's going to be fun. What I would do with Brave and the Bold, I would do a direct adaptation of the animated series because I'm so in love with that animated series. Not only is it really funny at times, but it can be really, really dark and somber, and it's got some wonderful moral lessons. There's a brilliant episode with Red Tornado, but there's many great episodes where he meets a bunch of people in the DC universe and has adventures with them. Blue Beetle, wouldn't that be fun if Blue Beetle was in Brave and the Bold? Or Green Arrow, there's a great Green Arrow. There's quite a few Green Arrow episodes where Batman teams up with Green Arrow in the Batman Brave and the Bold animated series. All we know about Brave and the Bold thus far is that Andy Muschietti, the director of the Flash movie that failed last year gloriously, glorious failure for Andy Muschietti, not his fault, by the way, I'm not blaming Andy for that disaster that happened last year. He's tapped to direct that movie. I'm very cynical about that appointment. I think Andy's a very solid director, but he hasn't proved himself to be a great director. He did make a great couple of It movies, but he hasn't got a lot on that CV, to have my total confidence in him. I still believe he was announced as the director to hype up the Flash movie, hoping it garnered some excitement for the box office. That didn't work. I'm a bit cynical about this appointment and feel that in the end, Andy won't end up directing this movie. I'm comfortable with Andy directing this movie because he will be directed by James Gunn. He'll be told what to do by James Gunn and Peter Safran. It will be from a vision from them anyway. But he is a good director. It's not a bad appointment. Lots of people point to, the action set piece with Batman in the Flash movie. But ultimately, all that is a stunt double with, the Bat bike or whatever, is it the Batmobile or whatever he's on? I can't even remember in the Flash movie, crashing and driving. It isn't really that groundbreaking. I know everyone gets really excited about that sequence. So the jury is out on Andy Muschietti. But we know very little else about Brave and the Bold. We do know, as I've already said, it's going to be a fantastical take of Batman. So I'm kind of excited for this project, and I hope it is a lot like the animated series and the string of graphic novels and mini comics they made on Brave and the Bold, because I do think it's a very fun take at Batman, and have a look what happens. And, sooner rather than later, they're going to have to cast a Batman. I believe that James Gunn wanted Robert Pattinson not only to be, the DC Elseworld Batman, but he wanted to bring him over to be DC Universe's Batman as well. And Matt Reeves said, no, that's what I believe. In terms of speaking to fans about this, he was asked why Robert Pattinson can't be Batman in DC Universe. He goes, well, that's nothing to do with me. Matt Reeves doesn't want that, and we've got to respect that decision. That tells me he wanted Rob Pattinson to be the Batman in DC Universe rather than having to, cast another Batman and having two Batmen. Because the Batman universe is nothing to do with James Gunn. It was never his decision to have that, happen. He came in afterwards, and this is what he means when he first came in and he said, I've come in and there's a lot of, questionable situations going around DC, and obviously he has something to say about the Snyder fandom going at him as well. But when you go after someone, you've got to expect some bite back. So if you're a Snyder fan attacking James Gunn, you've got to expect him to defend himself. Why should it be one-way traffic? And I think James does defend himself quite well, most of the time. So Batman, or Brave and the Bold, should we call it, because that's what it's being called. There's no Batman on the title. It's another title that's exciting to me, and I'm very positive with that, as I am about Superman Legacy. So sooner or later, we're going to have to find out who's writing it. There's not been an official announcement for a writer for that film. We don't know who's going to be writing that movie. All very interesting stuff. And here at Movies TV Mad, of course, you will know as soon as I know. Now, the next project is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I don't know when these things are being released, so I'm just going at them kind of with my interest levels, or the way I think they will come at us. We can talk about Waller and, but I'm not sure about Waller. I love Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. I think it will be an interesting, Max series. But again, we know that this is more about James Gunn's Suicide Squad universe. I'm sure we'll have Peacemaker cameos. Maybe we'll have Margot Robbie coming back as Harley Quinn for a small cameo. I'm not too sure what's going to happen with that. So there's that. That's probably going to happen a lot sooner than the other projects, but have they even started shooting that yet? I don't think that they have. Anyway, so there's that. So let's go back to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So I've always been a huge Supergirl fan ever since Geno Swarks. Is that how you say his name? He directed Supergirl 1984. He also directed quite a few episodes of Smallville. Very good director. I've always been a fan of the Supergirl 1984 movie. It's been the only movie for Supergirl thus far. Many people think it's a terrible movie and a terrible take at Supergirl. I think we can all agree that Helen Slater was a great Supergirl. Faye Dunaway played the villain. I mean, Faye Dunaway, iconic actress. Anyway, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is based, I think, on a Tom King? A Tom King graphic novel. Now, I've kind of researched it a bit. I haven't read the entire graphic novel, but I get the idea of it. This is going to be a more aggressive, unhappy Supergirl. She spent many, many years on a rock after Krypton was destroyed. She does end up on Earth, and she does end up, meeting a young girl and helping her. So this is a very different Supergirl. But I have spoken about Supergirl in the past, that she's very different in comics, very different to what she's been in live action in terms of the 1984 movie, in terms of the Smallville version, and certainly in terms of the Arrowverse version as well. So I'm very excited for that movie. We heard some casting rumours earlier this week, which we spoke about here at the DC Universe Daily. James Gunn's he hasn't said those rumours are untrue or true, but he's spoken about rumours being half true and half untrue. I think they know who they want to play this role, and I think it's either the young lady who's been voicing Supergirl, whose name escapes me right here and right now, or it's Millie Alcock, who was in House of Dragons. I think Millie would be quite good because she knows how to play that aggressive character, confident, aggressive character quite well, as we saw in House of Dragons. So it'd be very interesting what happens, who's cast, who's the villain of that film. Very, very interesting, because in terms of Supergirl, normally she ends up borrowing a lot from Superman's universe. So I think it's pretty safe to say that Krypto, the Superdog, will be in that movie as well. So I don't think we're going to see Krypto in Superman Legacy, unfortunately. But once Superman meets Supergirl, I'm sure he'll meet Krypto as well. But what's very interesting about Supergirl, we don't know if in Superman Legacy if he's already met Supergirl. He's been Superman for 1 year. But has he bumped into Supergirl yet by the time we see Superman Legacy in terms of that timeline? Will Supergirl play any part in Superman Legacy? I think she's, because we don't know. She could play a huge part, she could play no part, or she could cameo in a post-credit scene. It really, I don't know. Nobody knows the answer to that question. But it is interesting that we're hearing rumours about her casting before there's a director attached to that movie. Now we know there's a writer attached to that movie, so she's writing the movie as we speak, or adapting the graphic novel. But it's interesting that we don't have an official director attached to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, but we're hearing rumours about who's going to play the character. This could mean that Supergirl could play some part in Superman Legacy. I hope she does. I won't be disappointed if she doesn't. It's not that important, but it would be fun to see her, in that movie. So we will see. But yeah, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is another movie I'm excited about. And, there's nothing to kind of be negative about in terms of that announcement. We're also getting a Swamp Thing movie. Swamp Thing's always been a character I've loved from DC, because it's from that other side of the DC universe. It's from the Justice League dark side of the DC universe. Now we know that J.J. Abrams was building out a Justice League dark universe. Zatanna and Constantine was going to be played by an actor of colour. All that now is out the window. So I would assume that James Gunn would want to build out a Justice League Dark Universe, and maybe Swamp Thing is the beginning of that. Now, James Mangold, a very, very great writer-director, talented writer-director, is going to be writing and directing a Swamp Thing movie. He approached Gunn. He wanted to do it. He's very talented. He did Logan. He's done a bunch of great movies. It's not like he's not, he's not the right fit or anything. Obviously, the latest Indiana Jones isn't really a tick by his name, more like a big red cross. But really, the latest Indiana Jones isn't really Mangold's fault. Mangold actually blocked me a while back on X, Twitter, when it was Twitter, because he was saying we should let Zack Snyder move on from the Snyder Cut back in those days. And I responded to him. I wasn't rude. He didn't like it. He blocked me. In the end, he was wrong. Zack Snyder didn't want to move on from the Snyder Cut. He wanted it released. We know that now. James, you were wrong. Kindly unblock me, please. Anyway, I am excited that Mangold is writing and directing a Swamp Thing movie, but the swamp's a bit dirty at the moment. It's a bit unclear because he's also writing and directing a Star Wars movie. He's unsure what he's going to be doing first, the Star Wars movie or Swamp Thing. So who knows when we get this Swamp Thing movie? Is it part of DC Universe? Is it part of DC Elseworlds? That's something I'm very unclear on as well. But yeah, I want a Swamp Thing movie. It's about time we're getting a Swamp Thing movie. So I like the idea of the writer-director doing it. It's obviously something he's very interested in and very knowledgeable on as well. These are the things I want to see with CBMs going forward. People making these things that understand these characters. Although when you look at Todd Phillips, he knew jack shit about Joker. He did do his research, because there's a lot of Easter eggs, for other graphic novels with the Joker involved. So he clearly did his research, but he's not a DC person. He's not a comic book guy, but he did a really, really good movie. Anyway, yeah, so that's Swamp Thing. So that will be coming eventually. Looking forward to be updating you about that movie as well. Again, I'm very, very positive about the fact we're getting a Swamp Thing movie. If you're a DC fan, look, I'm not going to tell you how you should feel. But personally, as a DC fan, all these announcements are very, very exciting. We then have a Green Lantern streaming show. I don't know what it's going to be called. I think it's going to be called Lanterns, actually. And it's going to have Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan in a true detective type of show. Now, I'm excited about the idea of this show. I think it's an interesting idea. The frustrating part of this is a Green Lantern movie hasn't been announced alongside it. This has frustrated me and a lot of other fans from the day this series was announced, because I want to see an epic movie that just doesn't focus on Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan. I want a movie. I want to see lots and lots of Sinestro. I think Sinestro is the most interesting character in the core. To build him out in a movie universe that depicts the whole of the core and, OR and that whole universe. Because as I said about the Rock of Eternity in the Shazam universe, it's the same with Green Lantern core. These are universes within a universe. And, Green Lantern and the core can be our Star Wars in the DC universe. So I don't understand why they didn't announce, why James Gunn didn't announce a Green Lantern movie, and we're just getting this true detective version of Lanterns, with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. It will be great to see these two characters teaming up, but it's going to be, I'm assuming, based in our world. I don't expect us to see OR. So it's interesting what they're doing here. But apparently, this is all a very big part of the Gods and Monsters arc. So if it helps to push the story arc that James is writing about in part 1 of Gods and Monsters, I'm all for it. And eventually we do get a Green Lantern movie. Just because we're getting this series, it doesn't mean we're not getting a Green Lantern movie. I just would like to know we're getting one. But it is an interesting idea. I want to see it. It is interesting. It's not one of the ones where I'm thinking, but it is interesting. And if it does forward the arc and we do get a Green Lantern core movie in the end, that's okay with me. So I don't think this is a bad thing. It's one of those wait and see situations. Sorry about that. We had a pop-up there and I didn't like it. It was getting on my nerves. That's why I pressed pause. I'm still here. Don't go anywhere. Anyway, we carry on talking about James Gunn's plans for DC Universe. So we stick to streaming with Paradise Lost, which is a Wonder Woman prequel show that James Gunn is saying is going to be very, very like Game of Thrones. So already he's doing a Green Lantern, a Lantern show, which is very, very similar to True Detective. And now we're getting a Wonder Woman prequel show called Paradise Lost, which is a very famous graphic novel, which is going to be very similar to Game of Thrones. Again, where's Wonder Woman, right? Because we were promised by David Zaslav that we would be getting, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman front and center in this universe. In terms of the Lantern show, at the very least, we're getting Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. But what about, this prequel? There's going to be no Wonder Woman in this prequel unless she's narrating the story. I don't know. And of course, the big issue, the elephant in the room, which we've discussed quite a few times on this platform, is what's going on with Wonder Woman? Who is actually going to play Wonder Woman? So these are very, very interesting things that, questions that we don't know the answers to right now. Is Gal Gadot going to remain as Wonder Woman? According to James Gunn, kind of, she is. I don't actually believe she will continue to play Wonder Woman. But it's very, very weird. The whole situation with Paradise Lost is weird. It sounds like an interesting premise and an interesting show. Not that we know anything about it. We know less about Paradise Lost than we do about Lanterns. He's not really being that accurate about what's going to happen with that show. We know Paradise Lost. We know, a semblance of what it's about, but we don't know how this adaptation is going to go. And again, it's on streaming. So what the hell is going on with Wonder Woman? That's what we don't know. I think this is very messy. I don't understand why he can't just announce that she's Wonder Woman, and at the moment there's no movies and she'll appear here and there, not being accurate with where she'll appear, but just say she'll cameo for now. Just be honest. There's something not right about this Wonder Woman situation. It's like they're undecided. It's kind of like they're undecided. They kind of want to use Gal, but they want to start again. They don't know what to do for the best, and this is a very, very interesting situation. I don't think Gal Gadot will ever play Wonder Woman again, and she won't play. I don't believe she'll play Wonder Woman in James Gunn's and Peter Safran's DC universe. I could be wrong about that, of course. It's okay to be wrong. I'm just taking a punt here because I don't really understand what's going on. So these are all very, very interesting projects, and of course we've got Peacemaker Series 2, which James Gunn is writing in between prepping for shooting for Superman Legacy, which starts in March. So Peacemaker Series 2 is interesting because he's already explained the DC Universe is in another universe, in another timeline now, thanks to what happened in the Flash movie. So basically, Peacemaker Series 1 is set in the old DCEU, and Peacemaker Series 2 is set in the new DC Universe. So some people are finding this odd and confusing, and, I don't think it's that confusing. It's quite simple. Peacemaker Series 2 is set in a new timeline, in a new universe, and people won't remember the old universe. He's already confirmed, James Gunn, that it's mostly a brand new cast. Obviously, John Cena returns as Peacemaker. I think that we'll have Vigilante back again. I love James Gunn's take on Vigilante. Of course I like the original take. Of course I would have liked to have seen the canon, the original Vigilante preserved, but we didn't get that. But this is also a very good version of Vigilante, because although he's really, really funny, it's the psychotic nature of the character that makes him funny, but also very, very lonely and tragic. And I think the actor did a fabulous job. I think James did a brilliant job in writing that character. That's the way James wanted to do that. I also loved Judo Master. Hope to see him back as well. So, a lot of people have tried to use Peacemaker to bash, James Gunn over the head creatively with, saying things like Snyder fans saying, look, this is the guy who did Peacemaker and now he has control of DC. For me, that isn't a problem. I think Peacemaker was a very imaginative, let me get my words out properly. I thought it was a very, very great imaginative series. It also was funny, but it was also very tragic and very dark. James balanced those two tones and those two narratives really well. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think Peacemaker is James Gunn's best work thus far since his career in storytelling begun. So I'm a fan of James Gunn. I like what he does, but I'm not here for any directors, whether that be the late Dick Donner, James Gunn or Zack Snyder. I like everything those directors did, but I'm ready for a new take at DC. And these look like a bunch of new ideas with a bunch of new creatives, and that excites me. The past is the past. There's lots of problems that happened with DC in the past. One thing I love about DC over Marvel fans can brag about their box offices, where DC fans can actually brag about iconic content. Superman the movie, Superman 2. Superman Returns isn't the best of movies for a lot of people, but it's a movie that I hold dear to my heart. Man of Steel, I think it's a great movie. BVS, Joker, The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises. These are all great movies. These are things that Marvel fans can't brag about. They can brag about box office. I believe our history in terms of quality movies and television is something that we should hold dear to our hearts. Instead of bitching that Marvel's better than DC and that, worrying about box offices and cinema scores and TV ratings, Marvel can have that. But we've got something better. It should always be about the films and the television shows and what they've given us, how they've uplifted us. And there's a lot of DC stuff in the history of DC live action and animation. DC animation, so much better than most things Marvel has done. Obviously, Marvel have done a great job with the Spider-Verse universe, and suddenly, but that's nothing to do with Kevin Feige. That's to do with Lord and Miller, because they're geniuses. But we've got a lot to be thankful for as DC fans. Zack Snyder did make 3 DC movies if you're a Zack Snyder fan. So it's okay. I would have liked to have seen the rest of his vision, but at this moment in time, it's just not happening. I'd love to see the Schumacher cut as well. There's a big campaign yesterday on social media. I joined in with that, hashtagging release the Schumacher cut. The Schumacher cut basically is a deeper story about really Bruce Wayne dealing with his ghosts and the fact that he saw his parents getting killed, his psychology, his mental health. It's a very, I've heard from a lot of people who have seen the Schumacher cut. I definitely want to see that. I want to see the Ayer cut. Desperately, at this moment in time, that's not happening either. So because those things are not happening, I'm focusing on the future that James Gunn's going to give us, what Todd Phillips going to give us with his DC Black Label universe, and Matt Reeves Elseworlds as well with the Batman universe. It's all very, as I say, for me, if you put the negative stuff to one side, this is a very exciting future for DC. James Gunn has also spoken about gaming. He's not going to have games that are kind of we're not going to have a Superman Legacy game. They're going to make DC games for fun instead of using the games to market the movies and the streaming shows. Personally, I think they should do both, because I think the games, if you have a Superman Legacy game, it helps to market Superman Legacy. People have been dying for a Superman game for so long. What kind of Superman game would I make? Would I give my fellow Superman and DC fans? I'm obviously a DC fan and a huge Superman fan, as most of you who've been following me for a while already know. I just think you should make it quite kind of interesting. There should be a lot of challenges. It should be a lot of gameplay and a lot of fighting, but I want to see him on Krypton. I want to see him fighting Brainiac. I want to see him having different levels and different obstacles in the games, because the worst thing you can do to a game is make it far too easy and basic. So I want to make it a bit complicated, a bit exciting. I want to see a lot of the DC characters in that game as well, and I want him fighting different villains as well. But I want a story mode to this game. And what kind of story could we have in a DC game? Maybe Superman's been banished to the Phantom Zone, and that's where he starts his journey in the game. I don't know, because I'm not much of a gamer. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. What kind of Superman game would you put out there? And I'll give them a read a little bit later on. This has been me, Mick, here at the DC Universe Daily, here on Movies TV Mad. My content, you can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad, of course, and on Instagram, Movies TV Mad X. I'll be back with the DC Universe Daily tomorrow. Until then, keep it DC.